classroom management. It can either make you or break you. You are the only person on the face of the earth who can use your abilities. It's an awesome responsibility. You might recognize that quote from Harry Wong's book, The First Days of School. But let's look at it. You, the person who's listening to me, you are the only person on the face of this earth, the only one who can use your abilities, the abilities that are given only to you to become a teacher. You are the only person on the face of the earth who can use your abilities. And that is an awesome responsibility. So is the profession you're going into. It's an awesome responsibility. And the abilities you've been given will help you become the effective teacher you want to be. So, what is an effective teacher? Well, there are 5 components that blend together to make an effective teacher. Classroom management, human relation skills, planning skills, knowledge of content, selection and use of materials. All of these are very important, but let's look at each one of them. You can have great material. You can know your content. You can have planned a super fun lesson, and you can relate to parents, kids, and your team. But if you cannot manage the classroom, you cannot teach. Manage means managing materials, managing classroom traffic, managing student behavior, managing the day's flow of events. We're going to start off with things not to do. These are common practices, and most of them are effective. This is what you've seen other teachers doing, the frustrated, reactive teachers, not the proactive master teacher. These are techniques that backfire. The first is raising your voice. This is almost instinctive, especially when you get frustrated or at your limit. However, the louder you get, the more you've signaled you've lost it. Notice the difference between a quiet voice and a loud voice. A quiet voice is almost like a secret. A loud voice means frustration. Playing the superiority card. How do you do that? By saying, I'm the boss, or because I said so. You also play the superiority card by insisting that you are always right. Older kids know they're the boss of themselves. They know you have probably had more experiences than they've had, but you're not better than they are. They also know that no one is always right, including you. A technique that will backfire is insisting on the last word. You may insist on the last word, you may have the last word, but you've lost the child and the class. You've won the battle but lost the war. Lets the students save some face. You don't have to put up with their peers. They do. And often letting them have the last word like whatever, or an eye roll or a shoulder shrug, it'll make them feel better in the eyes of their peers. Put downs. Put downs like Earth to Carol, come in Carol. These little quips and put them down in front of their peers at the moment. They might wind up putting you down in the class's esteem for a long time. For example, I know not to ask you this, but, or figures you'd come up with something like that. Put downs attack a student's character. In some schools, their character, their feelings about their ability to survive, especially out on the street, that's all they have going for them. To attack a student's character, it's like attacking his core being. Sarcasm. It can be fun, but the more sarcastic you are, the more they'll give it back. Older kids really enjoy it, but the tendency of getting out of hand, it's there, and it becomes personal. Younger children don't understand sarcasm, and they take the comment personally, and that has a lasting effect. Double standards. Rules are rules. Don't fall into the double standard trap, even if you know the kid didn't mean to do something. If you give one kid a break, you have to give another a break. Sometimes we don't realize we have double standards. Some teachers have different points of view for different students. We all tend to look through various lenses while we're teaching. With a cooperative child, we put on our nice lenses. We let them get away with things. We know they really didn't mean it. They always have their papers with them. This time's an exception. We'll overlook it. With a troublesome child, we tend to look through bad lenses. They never have the right things with them. When will they ever learn? We throw the book at them. This is subconscious. We shift our point of view or take on and off our lenses. As teachers, we need to be aware of that. More things that backfire: preaching, commanding, demanding. Preaching and teaching may rhyme, but they're not the same thing. We've all had our parents preach at us at one time or another. Did it really teach us anything, or did we tune them out? Kids haven't changed. We preach, they tune out. We command, they find things around it. Making assumptions, accusations. Don't assume that you know what's happened in the classroom. And don't accuse someone of something if you're not sure what happened. I've got a story to tell you. It's about Diane Satter. She used to teach for A&M Commerce. Diane was a goody-goody. You know the type. Always dressed cute, hair always looking perfect, socks always matching her outfit, always the first one to raise her hand, and she always knew the answer. Of course, everyone called her a goody-goody at least twice a week, and she'd get upset. Well, one day, she decided she was going to change her image. So she made a spit wad, and she was going to aim it at one of the boys who was giving her grief. Well, Diane never had much practice in doing things like this, and she took aim and let go. Diane's name wasn't really very good. And so it happened. The teacher was walking by, and it hit her on the side. The teacher turned around and rounded on Steve, who sat in front of Diane. Oh, Steve was known as King of the Spitwads. And she laced into Steve, but he kept saying, I didn't do it. I didn't do it this time. I really didn't. Of course, the teacher didn't believe him because of his record. And Diane was too embarrassed to tell the truth. Moral of the story: don't make assumptions and accusations. And that goes along with not asking obvious or rhetorical questions. For example, you're not positive, but you're almost sure Javier took LaToya's pencil. Don't ask, Javier, did you take LaToya's pencil? Because what's he going to say? No. The best thing to do is say, Javier, why did you do that? It makes it seem like you know they did it, and you have eyes in back of your head, and they will answer. If they didn't do it, they'll say, I didn't do it, and you'll be able to tell. Asking rhetorical questions? Teachers do this all the time. Will everyone get out their math books? Michael, do I have to tell you again not to chew on the pencil? How can a teacher stop this habit? By getting a student who answers those questions. Thea, how many times do I have to tell you to put your chair's legs on the floor? Thea turns around and answers, about 54. Yep, I think 54 to do it. Missy, do you want to turn around and listen now? Missy says, nope. When students answer rhetorical questions, teachers will stop asking them. Backing students into a corner is another technique that backfires. Teachers tend to back students into a corner and give them no way out. You know that scared mouse look when attacked and backed into a corner? Always give a student a way out. I know you took her pencil because yours wasn't working the way you want to, but I think you need to repay her somehow for it. By doing this, we teach more than right of ownership. We teach morality and kindness, and that can't be taught from a book or a unit. Past events. Let bygones be bygones. You know, some kids have enough to carry on their shoulders without your piling on the past events. Let the past events fade away. It's not easy, but it means the difference between guiding the student towards self-management or are managing the student. These were all verbal techniques that fail. How about nonverbal signals? Are they as strong? You bet. Nonverbal signals often send stronger messages to students than our verbal ones do. They include tense body language and facial expressions. You know, that teacher look says more than 10 words put together. My kids used to tell their spouses that when I gave them my second-grade teacher look, no matter what I said, they knew what I meant. Your students do too. The nonverbal can show them that you're interested or uninterested, that you care or you don't care, that you're too busy for them, and that something else is more important than they are. Of course, another big technique that will backfire is touching or physical force. Unfortunately, in today's day and age, touching can always be misinterpreted. Be careful how you touch a child and when. In the younger grades, children always want to get a hug. Be careful how you hug. Go from the side. Hide thighs, fist bumps. Simple things like that are better. And be aware of what touches signals in different cultures. For example, don't pat a child on the head. In some cultures, that's reducing them to a pet. In other cultures, you stop their spirit from emerging and surrounding their bodies while they're thinking. And as far as physical force, each district and school has their own procedures for physical force. The bottom line is, you never accomplish anything besides resentment when you use force. Best rule, never use physical force unless it's to protect someone. And always include another teacher or get an adult in the room as soon as you can. What you want is compliance. You want your students to comply with your classroom management setup so your lessons will be productive and the day will go smoothly. You want them to conform to the rules and procedures you set up. In other words, you want them to observe the rules. You want each child to comply with the rules, but that does not mean that the child will be observing or watching everybody else to make sure they're doing the right thing. You want them to conform to procedures. This will help the room run smoothly, be organized, so you can teach. You still want them to retain their individuality and creativity and be themselves. So, what will affect compliance? What can you do to help your students to comply with your classroom rules and procedures? Well, there are 10 variables that will affect your students and that will help them comply with rules and procedures that you've set up for your classroom. They are using a question format. Instead of questions, use direct requests. Will you sit up straight? Do you want to get out your math book? It's almost a rhetorical question, and you know what that does. So instead of using a question, tell them what you want. Open your math books to page 54. One person from each group, go and get the math project. Another person from each group, get a trash can. A third person from each group, get the papers. Tell them what you want instead of using a question. Make it uncomplicated and clear. It sounds simple, but we don't tend to do it. Something else that can affect compliance, using start requests instead of stop requests. We're always telling the child, what should you do? You should stop. It's better to give positive requests for a child, especially when you want them to start an appropriate behavior. You hear teachers saying, stop tilting your chair on the back on its back legs. Stop looking out the window. You need to redirect the child with the start request. So we need to say, put all 4 legs on the chair. Look at your assignment and begin your work. Not stop, but start requests. Also, we need non-emotional requests. It's better to control negative emotions when making a request. Emotional responses decrease compliance and make the situation worse. For example, I've told you 7 times not to click your pen like that. It's really irritating. You know you're not supposed to do that. Your tone has become emotional You're beginning to show frustration. You need non-emotional, descriptive requests. For example, settle down is not descriptive. It's global. Does it mean stop talking? Does it mean get your books out? Does it mean look at me? Clearly tell the students what you want them to do, but don't ramble. And do not give 2 or more requests, especially if they're complicated, at the same time. For some students, 3 or more requests will result in no response at all. They're trying to process things and they can't. For example, if a teacher says, take out a piece of paper, turn to page 120, do the even problems from 1 to 10, the odd problems from 11 to 20, and don't forget to put your name and your date on the paper, and then when you get finished, put them in your folder. It's kind of like me telling you to stay seated, put your right ankle on your left ankle, your left hand on your right knee, extend your right hand, and look towards the left hand. See what I mean? Don't give 3 or more requests without writing them down. Also, it's best to give the same request only twice. You know, if you're known for giving it 5 or 6 times, students learn not to listen until you're at the end of your litany. The next biggie is distance. It's better to make a request from up close. The farther away you are, the less meaning it has. Look at this. At this distance, how strongly do you feel the compliment she's given you? Do you feel the positive feeling more now? This was just with a picture. Can you imagine how much stronger the feeling is in person? So if you need to compliment or discipline, closeness is a big factor, as is eye contact. It's better to look into a child's eyes or ask the child to look in your eyes. However, you've got to be aware of cultural differences. In some Asian cultures, they don't like looking into the eyes when a reprimand is made. That's a sign of disrespect. Your loudness of your request. It's better to make a request in a soft but firm voice rather than a loud voice. Like we said before, loud voice means you've lost your composure. Remain calm. Remain soft. Time. Give students time to comply after giving a request. Give them at least 5 to 10 seconds. During this time, simply look at the child and wait for compliance. According to Michael Grinder, the most important time is the 20 seconds after you give a request. So often we rush over to help students we know need help or to explain to them once again what we want. This leads to learned helplessness. Sometimes we assign something and then wander to someone to see if they've started. This conditions them not to get going until they see the whites of your eyes. After you make a request, or ask a question, or give an assignment, give them time to comply with what you've said. Give them wait time to process and begin. This is the most important 20 seconds. Number 9 is what Michael Grinder calls ... Let me explain this no-win game. You've put your assignment on the board. You've looked at your classroom. Everyone's starting to work except for the same few. So you go to the first student and you tell her to start and show her where she should be looking. Then it's off to the boy in the red shirt. You've got him looking at the book. Then it's off to the other daydreamer. You have her on task. And now it's back to the first student. You get number 1 started again. You look at the boy with the red shirt, and as you walk over there, he picks up his pencil and begins to write. But oh no, number 3 is off task again, and it's back to help her, and then it's off to number 1 again. Okay, number 3 is off task again. You've got her going, And then it's back to the boy with the red shirt. And here we're going back to number 1. You've got it. You're playing dot to dot. You see, the problem with dot to dot is that teachers think students are either off task or on task. But there's something in the middle called neutral. Students are off task, and when you go by them, they go into a state called neutral. They never really get on task. They never build up momentum of being on task and get into it. So, they get off task again. You go to them, they shift into neutral. And when you leave, they're off task again. The trick to getting them really on task, Michael Grinder says, is to watch them breathe. When you're by them, they sort of hold their breath and look at the work but never really start. Once they start breathing, and he assures us that they always will, they begin to work. And if the task is rewarding and challenging enough, they'll get on task and stay on task. And then you can go to the other students. Sometimes your being in the vicinity will be all you need to get students back on task. You know, you go look at someone else's work that's sitting next to or by the target student. Your nonverbal presence works wonders. This is called influence. The next hint is to stay still. Sounds funny, doesn't it? When you want all eyes on you for giving directions, stay still. If you want their attention, stay still in one spot. You may teach from all over the room, but staying still while you're giving directions or asking for attention means you want focus. And the last hint is to reinforce the positive. Reinforce compliance. It's easy to request behavior from a child and then ignore that what they're doing that's right. Tell them what they're doing that's right. Tell them that you're pleased and proud. Tell them something positive. Praise them, thank them for a response. That makes a big difference. If you want compliance, reinforce it when they meet your expectations. If you want more compliance, genuinely reinforce it. Well, is that all? Nah, you can have a break now. But be sure to look at the second PowerPoint for more ideas and hints for classroom management. It can make you or break you.